In today's video, I am showcasing the latest Eastman 52nd Street Tenor. Now this comes from their latest factory where they have complete control over the manufacturing process from beginning to end, and they just thought they'd sort of readdress the instrument from the ground upwards, if you like. One of the main things that they wanted to do was address the weight of the instrument and reduce the weight, because the principle of a lighter saxophone is that, a little bit like some of your favourite vintage instruments out there, when there's less mass on the instrument, you can just get more of an immediate resonance, and you don't have that sort of same resistance that you can get when there's a lot of metal or a thicker gauge of material and all that sort of thing that the player can potentially sort of fight with, if you like. So if you just take the basic tube of this new instrument, it is a thinner gauge of brass, but it's actually harder as well. So the combination of those two aspects just gives this, the theory that Eastman put forward anyway, is it gives this sort of extra core and clarity to the sound without sort of compromising on the structural integrity of the instrument, because it is this harder brass. At the same time, of course, it's lighter, so we're getting that extra resonance that I've just mentioned. And then coupled with that, within the key work, they've also just gone through the whole thing and thought, how can we save weight just to make the whole thing a bit lighter, just to pair up with what I've just mentioned about the body tube. And overall, they have saved on this tenor about 400 grams. Beyond the previous tenor, so that is quite a significant saving, and it does actually have some fairly obvious sort of tonal differences and practical implications to the player. So first of all, they have redesigned the neck. It has a slightly different taper, and it actually has a lower angle here. We don't have another one to compare it with, or the previous version, but take my word for it, there is a slightly different angle here, and that certainly has some implications on the overall way the sound is produced and the feel to the player. They've done away with the double arms here that we typically get on these lower keys here, and it's a funny thing really, this, because there's been a sort of school of thought that we should have double arms to get that extra security on these bell keys and the keys down here. But at the same time, we've also done okay with single arms on many instruments like Mark 6s for many years, and they've been just fine. So you could kind of argue it both ways, but certainly it is a weight saving by not having the double arms. And whilst I'm in this area of the saxophone, they've actually added something, so that is going to add a bit of weight, but it's a tiny thing. It's just a little guard here on this bottom C sharp key, so it just adds a bit more security down there. We have on the palm keys, they're not adjustable anymore as they were previously in this sort of Keelworth style. So they've just decided to sort of save the weight there, go for more of a traditional look. And in fact, I mean, I had no issue with what it was like before, but it was chunkier, I suppose. And this slightly more sleek design, it's a little bit more Mark 6-esque. It feels absolutely fine to me. Down here on the E flat and C key, they've just gone for a slightly more streamlined design. This used to scoop up a little bit more on the E flat, but it's now just a little bit flatter. Feels pretty good under the fingers. On the left hand table keys, this whole design, this whole area here is a bit more sleek and minimal, a little bit more vintage-esque again. It used to be a slightly larger square, but everything's a bit more compact here, and yeah, again, for me, I've no issues with it. I don't necessarily need to have this massive amount of space here where I'm moving my finger around. It just sort of minimizes and economizes a little bit, so it feels good to me. I have no issues with moving around there at all. And then finally, on this side here, the bell to body brace, we've just got a 2-point connection here rather than the 3-point connection. I suppose it saves a little bit of weight, and looks pretty good as well, so quite like that. And up on the top here we have, looks very snazzy to me, this, and minimal, and that is because, wait for it, there is no lyre screw. What are we going to do, folks? I think most of us will not mind, but perhaps there might be a few upset people in the marching band community. But it has got a nice sleek look to it, this whole connection section here without the lyre screw. And I have to say the neck receiver feels great, feels really well designed. This is a snug fit. It's a nice tight secure connection, and this is such an important area for the saxophone, so I'm sure that they have put some proper R&D into this part here. So that's pretty much it in terms of the modifications that they've made on the key work. Now let's give it a bit of a test and see how it sounds. So my overall thoughts playing it just there are that the instrument has a much more defined core to it than the previous model. I've got some very strong memories of the sound previously having a certain kind of width to it, I suppose, a spread, that's the word, in the sound. And the spread isn't quite the same on this. There's much more of a focused core to it. So there is a little bit of a fundamental shift in the tonal thinking of this instrument for me. It still has that vintage-esque sound to it that's been associated with the Eastman instruments from the outset. That's one of the things that tells the 52nd Street apart from the Rue St. George models, for example, which doesn't quite have that. I feel that as you go up through the palm keys and into the altissimo, that core sound is very clearly defined. You know, you can hear a real kind of spark to the sound there. It does. There's a certain amount of cut there, and I think that part of that is, I've got this brighter Guardala setup here that I'm really loving of late. But it really brings out that sort of pointedness in the sound that we're getting in the upper reaches. But just throughout, as you go down to the lower reaches of the instrument, you can hear that sort of very well-defined sound, which I love. And actually, when you try it on other mouthpieces as well, which I have done, I've tried it on the hard rubber pieces, which probably have more of a sort of fat spread sound than this mouthpiece. You can still hear that defined kind of core sound. So I think that is the main shift with this new instrument. It really just needs pointing out over and above the previous model. And I really think that they have done a great job with kind of reviewing the instrument, as it were, and bringing us this latest great instrument from their very new factory. Great job, Eastman, and I look forward to any future designs that come out, because you're clearly doing fantastic work with these instruments.